Hello there, I'm Simon Dudley. Today we're in a webinar with my friend and colleague Elka Popova, VP of Research at Frost Sullivan. We're going to have a really interesting conversation about intelligent devices and how they boost worker performance in the collaboration space. I'm kind of interested to know, that's a pretty big title, Elka, so why don't you introduce yourself, tell everyone who you are and what you do, and also tell us what this whole webinar is about.
Hi, everyone. Once again, as Simon introduced me, this is Elka Popova with Frost & Sullivan. I had the connected work group at the company. On this team, we cover pretty much all of the unified communications technologies, or the communications and collaboration solutions that businesses use to boost worker productivity, encourage collaboration and innovation within the company. We track telephony, messaging, audio, web and video conferencing, cloud services, as well as premises-based solutions, and so on. My personal area of expertise is cloud services, especially unified communications as a service, as well as intelligent devices. Now, we're here today because I believe it's very important to talk about the role that devices play in boosting worker productivity in organizations that are striving to deliver greater customer value by leveraging all the different human assets within the organization in the most kind of effective way. There are various worker types and in functions and roles, and they all need to come together. They all need to engage in a team effort to deliver an end-to-end customer experience. I think this is tremendously important in today's highly competitive industries.
Okay, excellent. And Elka, just to say, Logitech's involved in this because we worked with you to develop a white paper, which is of course available after this, and we are showing a lot of the material from that white paper in this conversation. So if you're interested, get in touch. We can happily get you this material. Logitech, of course, is heavily involved in this type of technology, and therefore we're really interested in the sort of work that Elka's doing. And we thought we'd share that work with you folks. So with that, why don't we get into it, Elka, and talk about how some of the things are, some of the technologies are changing the way that people go to work.
Simon, I think we would all agree that we live in highly dynamic times. Things are changing faster than they ever used to change in previous years and for previous generations of workers. There are multiple trends, including demographic, macroeconomic, technological, and other trends that are affecting the way we operate internally within our organizations and the way we deliver customer value. On one hand, we're seeing significant changes in how the workforce is evolving. Today in the workplace, we have at least, 4, maybe sometimes even 5 generations of workers. Certainly lots of baby boomers, Generation X and millennials, but there are still some folks from the previous generation. Some call them traditionalists, some call them, the greatest generation, I believe. And now the Generation Z youngsters are coming into the workforce as well. Why is this significant? I mean, this places a kind of a huge pressure on the company to provide the tools that are best suited for the different generations of workers. Everybody has different preferences for the communications and collaboration solutions that can make them most effective and enable them to perform their business tasks. As you know, Generation Xers were the first generation to start using email, but we still love our desktop phones, although we have become increasingly attached to our mobile devices. Well, millennials and Generation Z are definitely a lot more comfortable with their mobile devices and rarely, if ever, use their desktop phones. They're also like visual communications. They're much more attuned to social collaboration and so on. So they expect all these tools to be available at the workplace so that they can be more productive. We're also constantly on the go. This is an incredibly important factor for how businesses and their workers get their job done. Today's organizations need to adjust to enable productivity for their workers regardless of their physical location. Some of us work at home. Others are still very much attached to their desks in the physical offices. But we often need to collaborate, or we often need to deliver on our job tasks in all kinds of public spaces, whether it's a coffee shop or an airport or some other location, a hotel room or some other place. And for this, we need technologies to keep us connected with our teammates, connected with our customers, to our company applications and services. So these are some trends that are affecting specifically the workforce. But these, as well as some other trends, are also changing the workspaces. Now, traditionally, a workspace would be an office, right? This would be a physical building where people come to work 9 to 5, they leave, they go home, and they forget about it. Today, that's not the case for the majority of the workforce. Many of us, like I mentioned earlier, telecommute. I work from home permanently. Many people alternate. They come to the office occasionally, and they sometimes work from home. For this, businesses need to enable what we call, hot desking or hoteling, which means they need to have these temporary workstations and a certain amount of flexibility within the office space to both use the real estate most economically and at the same time accommodate the different types of workers. So these are more versatile workspaces, different from what we're, the rigid workspaces of years past. We're also seeing more and more open offices, okay? Open offices are very, very kind of important today because they're created to foster collaboration. Like I mentioned earlier, it's very important to ensure that workers of various skill sets, various job roles, are able to interact with each other, that they're engaging with each other so that they can innovate, so that they can reach decisions faster, so that they can come up with creative ideas that leverage all of their different skills and expertise and so on. Now, these open offices create a lot of opportunities, but they create a lot of challenges too, right? So if you're sitting in this open environment, sometimes it's hard to focus. So you need the right tools, and very important, you need the right devices to help you concentrate, to help you focus on the task at hand. But then when you need to collaborate, you need to be able to, join a conference meeting using a video device or a web camera or a speakerphone. And you can do this at your desk or maybe in a huddle space or a huddle room, as we call it. These are like smaller spaces where you can collaborate, or you may want to go to a more traditional conference room. So this is a very, very important trend that businesses need to accommodate with certain technology tools.
Sure. Just so everyone knows, by the way, we've done a ton of work already with Frost & Sullivan about huddle room spaces. That's not really the focus of today, but we've got a ton of material. Some of it's in this presentation, but also in some of our others. So this is absolutely fantastic stuff, Elke. So I think you've done a great job of telling us the landscape of the environment. It's certainly a fascinating one to see how we're going to make all these millennials and Gen Zs and old men like me as Gen Xers all work together. It's going to be an interesting problem to solve. So why don't we talk about, on the next slide, why don't we talk about how we're going to solve this problem?
So all of these changes I talked about are partly driven by technological advancements. As technological development accelerates, it drives a lot of changes in how we work, how we function, how we interact, and so on. And there are many companies that are embracing this notion of digital transformation. And they're accelerating their, value creation. They're also becoming, a kind of disruptors in their individual industries. Companies that are leveraging digital technologies most effectively usually see higher revenues or higher revenue growth, and they're placing a lot of pressure on everybody else to also adapt, to also embrace these advanced technologies so that they can thrive and compete more effectively. We're seeing competition also happen in the search for talent. As businesses look to compete, more effectively, they need the right type of workers. They need the right type of skill sets. And it's becoming harder and harder to find the right people and train them and retain them because they're always looking for opportunities. And obviously, last but not least, the technology's greatest role is to increase employee productivity, to make workers more efficient and thus happier with what they are contributing to the company and how they're helping deliver, innovative products and services to the customers. So for this, businesses are investing in a variety of technologies. I'm showing here the results of a Frost and Sullivan survey. We asked IT and telecom decision makers about the main drivers for technology investments in the period of 2017 to 2019. And as you can see, the top goal is to improve productivity. They had to select the top 3 drivers, and improving productivity ranked the highest. Reducing costs is it's a constant. It's an ongoing concern. But ultimately, what businesses are also looking to accomplish is improving the customer experience. Without the customers, no business can exist in any industry. And for that, we need the collaborative enterprise that I talked about. We need all the individuals within the organization, from the back office, finance, accounting, all the way to the frontline workers, sales, customer service and support, and the knowledge workers, to work together and collaborate to deliver these this value.
Elka, I think it's fascinating. I'm looking at your data there. I mean, I would certainly agree that almost every IT CIO that I speak to tells me this sort of story. But if you were to talk to HR managers, and we're increasingly talking to HR folks and we're talking to facilities people, I think the attract and retain workforce thing is becoming a major driver for them. It's interesting to me that at 19%, that looks low on this list, but of course it was a question you asked of IT managers. I think if you asked it of HR managers, I think it would be much higher. I was on a panel discussion a couple of days ago with some folks from Google and some other firms, and it was really interesting to see how they go out of their way to make the experience of their users as interesting and as pleasant an experience as possible, because, well, Google actually do pay rather well, but they are absolutely at the top 1 percentile of, they can basically pick the staff they want. Obviously, not every organization can do that, right? We can't all be in the top 1 percentile by definition. So the opportunity to improve people's quality of life with new technology, make them have an interesting experience and make them not be frustrated by the technology they use, seems to me a really important thing. So I would love to see a survey like this that just covered HR managers as well. Maybe that's something we should do. And if you're an HR manager watching this, we'd love to hear from you and see if my anecdotal idea is correct. So this is great stuff.
Very good. Very good. And I think that one of the key kind of factors in attracting and retaining the right people within the organization, Simon, is to give them the right collaboration tools and enable a collaborative culture. If you read all the research that has been done on the different generations, I'm sure you would agree with me that the next generations, the millennials and the Generation Z, at least the ones we know, are a lot more collaborative than previous generations. They thrive on feedback. They thrive on kind of appreciation and on the ability to feel part of a team. So it's critical to provide them with the right tools. And it goes with the right culture. I keep emphasizing this. You and I are in the technology space. We constantly talk about technology, but when we interact with end customers, we know that without the right culture, you can't achieve, the outcomes you're looking for. But here are some more data points from surveys that we've conducted. And we are seeing an increasing focus on conferencing and collaboration tools. And as you can see, the decision makers that we talk to, about 80% of them agree that conferencing and collaboration tools are important or very important. And when we asked them why, they highlighted three main reasons. They believe that these new advanced conferencing and collaboration tools boost productivity, improve collaboration, and accelerate decision-making. And they're adopting them. Audio conferencing is probably the most kind of mature technology of all. And 45% of the organizations were surveyed deliver this technology to all of their employees. 44% also give desktop video conferencing to all of their employees, and 37% give web conferencing to all of their employees. Quite a significant percentage of the using organizations also use these technologies daily. I mean, audio conferencing, 60% of the respondents use it daily. So this speaks to the enormous role that these tools play in today's collaborative organization.
I think this is interesting stuff. I don't know about you, but of course I spend my life on video. If you want to have a meeting with me, it will be on video. That's basically how I do it, unless I'm in the car. And the whole idea of spending your life on telephone calls would just be appalling now. I know I'm a Gen Xer, but frankly, I think much more like a Gen Zer. My kids wouldn't even know what a telephone is. One of my boys actually tried to delete the phone app from his smartphone, because it's like, I never make calls, I need the space. And I think that that's definitely something that we're now in. And it also amazes me the number of organizations who say, oh no, we're still a phone-based, go and see people orientated environment. And they do conference calls all day. And then when they're on the road traveling, they then ring their family on FaceTime or Skype or, some other application from their phone. And that kind of makes me laugh, that this whole idea that actually they're better equipped for the world in their personal lives than they are in their professional ones. So I think organizations need to think that people are doing this anyway. So why wouldn't you equip them, those who haven't done it yet, equip them for the new environment, which actually, let's be honest, isn't even new anymore. This has been possible for a number of years.
Agreed. I think it comes to education and discussing the benefits of the new technologies with some of these, decision makers. I think also what you're seeing is people using a lot of consumer tools to perform their job tasks. So sometimes they provide the value that they may be missing in their work environment, and that kind of serves the purpose. But I think smart companies are definitely focusing on redefining the user experience. You will notice that the really forward-looking organizations are looking to enable a new type of kind of user experience that's a lot more intuitive and it's a lot more natural. You know, these young generation of workers, and I shouldn't be sounding like a grandma here, but I think we call them tech savvy. I think they're tech dependent. I don't know if they're necessarily tech savvy in the sense of being able to figure out complex technologies, but they're used to them. They cherish them and they need them to do their job. So these smart companies are making sure that they have the right tools for all generations. But for everybody, they need to have, you know, these newer kind of software-based communications and collaboration tools. You know, an interface, a single pane of glass, as we call it, that allows you to click to call, click to message, click to conference. In other words, you're doing everything from that one single software client.
Well, and also you're doing it in a simple way, right? I think that many of us would know that, you know, things like video collaboration, as an example, has been possible for 20 years, maybe even, well, certainly longer than that. But the reality was it was so hard to use for the majority of its experience that you really needed to be close to an expert in the field just to use it. And I would agree strongly with you that these Gen Zs and millennials aren't necessarily technically savvy. It's that the technology has got simple enough or sophisticated enough that it's now simple. That's Leonardo da Vinci, isn't it? Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I think that we're at that point where the technology just works. This whole idea that it doesn't operate when you press the button and it does all the clever stuff behind the scenes when no one's looking now enables all these folks, where previously you actually needed to know how it all worked. And as a result, a lot of people either never learned or shunned away from it, knowing how complicated it was.
And it was expensive. Today, a lot of these technologies have become very, very affordable. And there is a spectrum. You can pick, you know, something very simple, usually inexpensive, or you can pick the most complex system that will probably deliver a few additional features and capabilities, but you usually know that you can rely on your IT staff to make it work for you. So that there is a huge, huge variety of tools that businesses can use. And increasingly what we're seeing is communications and collaboration tools are becoming integrated with workflow and productivity applications. So you can click to call from your Office documents, Google Documents, or from an email. And you can also click to call from a CRM application or from vertical applications. So what that does is it makes it makes communications even more impactful when you want to improve certain business processes or achieve certain outcomes, like maybe accelerate order delivery or improve the efficiency in handling help desk tickets or whatever it is, you know, your business process that's most mission critical. And communications and collaboration tools today are much more accessible because of the, you know, cloud and most of the intelligence being in the cloud. Now you can access your corporate conferencing application or calling application from a variety of different devices and in pretty much any physical location. So the whole experience becomes a lot more frictionless. You're switching from network to network, from device to device, in a much, much kind of smoother and effortless way. I think it's time to talk about how devices play a role in this evolving communications and collaboration kind of paradigm. I think when we talk about modern communications, we're focusing on the software applications and the communications services that we use. But I think what's most critical today is that we also have a variety of devices to choose from. And when we're in the office, most of us still use a desktop phone, where when we are on the go, naturally, we switch to our mobile devices. But we also need to bridge these experiences. So often we would be using, let's say, a multi-purpose headset to plug into the desktop phone, plug it into a cellular device, then plug it into our PC, always to get, you know, the privacy and the kind of ergonomics of you know, hands-free communications. We also use a lot of new devices such as, you know, speaker phones and webcams and so on, as well as sophisticated video conferencing systems. Some of these are purpose-built for specific type of communications and collaborative experiences like video conferences, and others are more multifunctional. And those would be, you know, like the headsets that I described, because they can be integrated with a variety of different devices. I think it's important to talk about how modern devices deliver value to workers and in the collaborative enterprise. They certainly serve multiple different purposes. Think about the open office again. I talked about it previously, and as I mentioned, it certainly delivers some benefits, but it creates certain challenges as well. We need to be able to concentrate to be productive. We can't be collaborating and communicating all the time. So what I need in this type of environment is a headset. As a knowledge worker, I kind of swear by my headset. I needed to isolate the noises around me, but I also needed to multitask. I need to take notes when I'm working, or I needed to, you know, move slides while I'm also listening to audio. And it's extremely important to have a headset in an open office. We also need devices to kind of reach decisions in a more collaborative manner. So these are all the devices that enable us to communicate one-on-one or participate in conference sessions. And we could be doing this, we might be doing this at our desks, and then all we need is our PC, a nice headset, a speaker phone separately, and a webcam if we're in a, maybe in a huddle room, or we might need an elaborate video conferencing system. But the purpose here is to enable teamwork, to enable this, you know, kind of collaborative ideation that is required for businesses to innovate, to foster innovation, and constantly kind of, you know, deliver greater and greater customer value. We need to stay engaged. With many of us working remotely most of the time, we want to feel part of a team. We want to be part of important decisions, and for that, we need, again, you know, our devices. I need this webcam now to be communicating with you. I need my phone system. I need my mobile device, and whatever it is that I use to engage with my coworkers or clients.
Yeah, you know, just a small comment on a personal note from that. I've worked, as I'm sure you know, I obviously everyone would know, I'm in Texas, but my HQ is in San Jose. We're in the Bay Area. And I've actually only been to that office 7 times in 3 years, but still have a relationship with people in the office because I see them every day on video. And I'm absolutely certain if it was a telephone line, I wouldn't feel part of it. And it's back down to the relationship you have with the organization and whether you retain staff. If people are just a voice on the end of a phone, you've missed 60% of all the communications. You don't build a relationship. And then when someone else comes along and offers you, you know, $1 an hour more in a call center environment, you don't feel attached to those people. So it's very easy for people just to feel like they're a piece of a machinery. They're not part of a team. So I think that engagement one's really important. Certainly, I can attest from my personal use and lots of other people I talk to that that's more important than most people realize when they first start this process.
Team spirit is just an incredible factor in making people, you know, want to contribute more to the value that the company delivers to the outside world.
Yeah.
And it's also important to note that we need the right devices for multitasking and task bridging. There's a lot of research done on whether multitasking necessarily makes us more productive, but it's become a habit, a good or a bad habit. Mm-hmm. And for that, again, we need to be able to switch tasks, and we need to be able to perform multiple tasks simultaneously. Again, for me as a knowledge worker, a headset is what makes me do all that. I'm usually listening to music while I'm writing. I need the headset to be listening to a webinar while I'm probably, and don't tell anybody this, I'm checking email and all of that, usual corporate behavior. We need to be efficient, and naturally, again, we need to be isolated from the noises around us. We need to be able to switch from a phone call to a conference session and so on. We need privacy too. Think of an airport. Oh, there are all these people that you think are talking to themselves. Now we know they're wearing an usually invisible headset, and they're probably talking to somebody else. We can usually hear what they're saying, but at least we can't hear what the other party is saying. Sometimes we wish we could, but anyway. There's also a lot of research done on the importance of stress relief and ergonomics in the office space. Sitting is the new smoking. We can also say that, holding a phone to your ear is whatever you want to call it, the new smoking as well, or the new drinking. But there are devices that help avoid this neck strain or the back strain of trying to do, these kinds of, uncomfortable, activities. So a headset for me, again, is what helps, avoid holding a phone to my ear or otherwise kind of straining my body.
The other thing, I would agree with everything you've said. The other thing I would add is, and I think you've sort of touched on it, but in my experience, and certainly we've observed this as well, is when people are wearing a headset, a full-size headset, maybe not an in-ear thing, but a full-size one, people know not to interrupt them. It's almost like a sign that they put on. Maybe the next generation of headsets need to have a little light on the top, I'm available to talk, I'm not available to talk. May not look very good, I'm not a designer, but that sense of you put the headphones on, you're in an open plan office, people know not to come and interfere with you. And I think that's actually a really useful thing. Otherwise, you're sat there, you're trying to get some work done, and everyone asks you whatever they're going to ask you, normally a million questions. And then that gets back to our switching between task problem. So I think these are all great points.
Very good. Indeed. I think headsets are probably the most important device for knowledge workers today. I'm convinced that headsets are a lifesaver. Now, speaking of headsets, I think they're absolutely essential to digital transformation. I think they have evolved tremendously from a decade ago when they were just a simple peripheral. I mean, contact center agents wore headsets. People in the office, in the general enterprise space, were not as accustomed. I think one of the main reasons why this has changed is because we became more accustomed to using headsets in our consumer lives. Now, with mobile devices, people wear headsets, certainly a slightly different kind, but they now understand the value of a headsets in providing the privacy, the ergonomics, and all the noise cancellation benefits that they deliver. Another factor is also the increased usage of conferencing technologies in the workspace. Now, with most of us multitasking during a conference call, it's incredibly important to wear a headset. An open office environment without a headset, you wouldn't be able to concentrate on the conversation. But I should also mention that on the supply side, the technology vendors have done a lot to make headsets one of the most intelligent devices available today. Headsets today have, embedded intelligence. They also connect to cloud platforms that control the headsets. Increasingly, artificial intelligence and other technologies are going to make them even more intelligent. And headsets are today able to detect user availability to take a call, user proximity to certain devices. We can press buttons on the headsets to start a call, reject a call, mute ourselves, and so on. There are different form factors and designs to appeal to different people. The ones that still like the binaural ones, they have that option. The ones that like the more kind of sophisticated invisible design, they can have a tiny one over the ear. There are different form factors to appeal to different generations of workers. But to me, headsets are one of the most important devices in the collaborative enterprise.
It's interesting. I've always been a one-ear headphone type user for whatever reason. I generally like it so that I can hear my own voice in the call. However, we recently launched a new headset called Zones, and you can use a software application and vary the amount of outside noise you hear. So it's got noise, echo cancellation. It's obviously got white noise and background noise suppression as well. But typically I feel too isolated in those headsets. But these modern ones, and the Logitech Zone, I'm not turning this into an ad, but it's one of our new products, you can vary that number. And I was playing with it recently and went, oh, now I can use two-ear earphones. And I've never actually been able to do that before. So the technology's really moved on. I think people don't realize how much it's changed, even in the last couple of years. I have seen some horror stories where customers have thought headsets, well, they just buy the cheapest they can because they don't really matter, they're all the same. And it's very obvious they're not all the same. I've heard some real horror stories about that stuff.
Oh, as a consumer, you can always get a really kind of cheap, kind of knockoff brand headset. If all you need to do is call grandma over Facebook Messenger or Skype or a different consumer application, that's probably all you need. But in a business environment, I think, depending on job roles and functions, IT buyers, whether those are the actual IT, managers and the CIO, or it's line of business managers, they need to consider the specific benefits and outcomes that they're pursuing in purchasing these headsets for their users. Because here it's a matter of not only, enabling a certain individual to be more productive, but it's about company value and customer value in the end. There's a lot at stake.
There is, and the other thing to consider is that it's a very intimate experience, right? You don't generally wear somebody else's headphones, so they become part of your persona or part of your life, and you're going to be wearing them a lot. And this sort of technology we're talking about is not about call centers. You know, that's a different market to the one we're discussing here. This is for knowledge workers. This is, frankly, Elke, people like you and me, right? This is folks who either work from home or work in an open plan office, but not in a call center environment. And so these folks have a very high expectation of what the technology will have, because they already use this technology in their personal lives. So if you're used to some really nice headset in your personal life and you get some $12 really cheap one in your professional one, well, that's all down to the retaining staff and making certain that people feel valued and all these things. So yeah, it's a pretty important decision facilities, CIOs and line of business managers need to make.
And younger generations of workers have very strong preferences for the type of devices they want to use. I need to admit that when I joined the workforce, no one ever cared about the type of devices I wanted to use. I mean, in the early 90s, businesses could only afford so much technology and users had no say in that. Today, you cannot keep a talented millennial as part of your company unless you give them a device they're happy to wear, proud to wear, and they see, the benefit of using that device.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great point. Now, we want to talk about the specific use cases where modern devices can enable different work styles and kind of business practices. I'm going to go back to this notion of the open office. When I started working, bosses were still behind, closed doors. The rest of us were in offices of 3, 4, and more people in a room. We could see each other. And then we moved into cubicles because they were supposed to help us concentrate, focus, and have our personal spaces. To be honest, I'm not sure the cubicles were necessarily so great because you could still hear your colleagues, only there was this wall that kind of separated you from the rest of the team. Now, open offices are, allowing people to have more fun together, but then they also need the concentration. So once again, in these open office environments, you need the right kind of headset, the right kind of, devices for your desk space. And then you need devices for people to move to huddle rooms or conference rooms to have a more collaborative experience. So businesses need to accommodate these different workspaces with different devices because users are likely to need devices for all of these different, spaces and job tasks. As we become more mobile, we need devices that we can carry with us. And that means, being able to move around the office and outside, outside the office. Inside the office, I want to be able to maybe bring my, webcam or personal speakerphone, definitely my headset if I am hot desking or if I need to use a phone in a huddle room. Outside the office, again, I probably need a headset that allows me to connect to my mobile device when I want to take a conference call in a public room, public space. I think we're also becoming increasingly used to blended experiences. What does that mean? I mean, this means that I'm listening to music. From that, I want to switch to a call that just came in on my desktop phone or my soft client. After that, I realized I need to elevate the conversation to a video conference. So again, I need to be able to switch smoothly without having to, play with cables and figure out buttons. I just need to be able to do this very efficiently, quickly, and without frustration. for this, again, a nice headset can help me, quickly switch modalities without any interruption. We need cross-functional devices. In most companies, we use a lot of different communications and collaboration applications and services from different vendors. I may be using Zoom for video conferencing and Cisco for my, soft client one-to-one calls. I need a device that can help me switch without interruption, that integrates with both and uses all the functionality. And finally, we need devices to accommodate new paradigms. We just talked about these young people joining the workforce who require different form factors. They need, devices and peripherals like headsets that make them look cool. I mean, it's not only about the call quality. They just want to look cool. And they want these devices to be as functional as what they're used to in their consumer lives. So for this, businesses need to give them the latest and greatest in technology rather than the old-fashioned devices that maybe generations Xers like me were satisfied with. So I think there are multiple compelling use cases for intelligent devices. Organizations just need to pick the right ones for their workforce demographic, workforce job functions and roles, and for the different kind of office spaces and work styles that they are supporting. So let's share a few key takeaways for our audience here. The most important thing to remember is a number of different demographic, macroeconomic, and technological trends are shaping the future of work. They're affecting the nature of the workforce, the workspace, and the work styles. And we need to take these into account when looking to equip the modern office with the right kind of technologies and devices to make the workforce more productive and efficient in delivering customer value. Businesses must embrace these new digital technologies if they don't want to be left behind. To stay competitive, they need to invest in communications and collaboration tools, meaning both software, services, and devices, to better retain their workforce and deliver, the right customer value. Contemporary collaborative tools are mission critical. Web conferencing, video conferencing, team collaboration, and businesses must invest in those to enable co-creation within the organization. The most innovative, visionary companies are investing in technology specifically to enhance the user experience. They know that the different generations of workers require different tools, and they know that they must deliver these tools to their workforce so that they can be productive and content with their work environment. Modern devices have evolved a lot compared to their counterparts from decades ago. They can deliver powerful benefits, and they can accommodate different work styles and workspaces. Headsets specifically have become an essential part of the current, present and future workplace. They provide the ergonomics, productivity, and other benefits that workers need to do their jobs well and be satisfied with their job environment. For different work styles and different workspaces, businesses need different communications and collaboration solutions. So they need to do their due diligence and invest in the right technologies for their workforce. Now this was all we had to share with you for today. It's time for questions.
Well, firstly, before we get, well, as everyone's typing their questions in, I just want to say a couple of things. Firstly, Elke, thank you so much for your time. This has been a fascinating talk. We were going to make it very interactive. I know I interrupted you a few times and said a few anecdotes, but honestly, you covered everything. I barely had anything useful to add, if perhaps anything useful at all. So this has actually taken more time than we thought it would. So let's do this for Q&A. We would love to hear from you. Elke and I will both be available to answer questions, but we won't do it live today. What we will do is you ask us questions and we will both answer your questions specifically to you individually. And if you're interested, we'll also produce a set of, these were the questions that came up and these were the answers we gave. It will give us the opportunity to consider our questions rather than just off the cuff. And it will also allow you to give us detailed questions if you have them. So with that, Elke, I would like to thank you so much from Logitech. I'm Simon Dudley, Head of Analyst Relations for Logitech. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in our next call.
Thank you, Simon. It was a pleasure to speak with you.